Yeah, Wednesday.
Yes, hello everyone. We're live, and today I have the pleasure of chatting online with Patrick Morrison, who I met a bunch of years ago. I won't name how many years, but he is the founder and designer behind the brand that I highly respect, and I love every new collection that comes out. And the brand is called Furious Goose. That's why you see that Furious Goose. And so welcome, Patrick. And,
Hi there, yeah.
And I'd love you to tell us where you're based and tell us a little bit about your brand before we.
Yeah, so I guess, we could start with the brand motto, which is dress like an aristocrat, accessorize like an anarchist. And that kind of sums up where we're at with where we've positioned our brand. We make luxury or high-end accessories for men and women. So pocket squares, silk scarves, this kind of thing. And but yeah, we from the beginning we wanted to make something a bit different and a bit rebellious, because that reflects my personal style, and I didn't want to make another boring pocket square company. So I thought, let's try and do something different, which is the anarchist side of it. So and that expresses itself in our subject matter, but also we don't sort of see the ladies' scarves are not feminine, the men's pocket squares are not masculine. We mix it up. It's a gender-free kind of design aesthetic. Yeah, exactly.
So it's a shame we can't see your designs at the moment, but they are very brightly colored.
Yes.
Maybe show one.
I can show one.
And the designs, you're the creator, you design, right?
Yes, that's right. That's my primary interest, is the visual. Yeah. But obviously I'm now running the business as well. And here's like one, it's upside down. So very, very crisp vector designs, bright colors. And yeah, really kind of psychedelic, basically.
Yes, some of them are, but some of them kind of have guns and dragons and stuff. But it's like you said, it's not overly masculine, it's not overly feminine. It's really nice and appealing.
Yeah, I think that in a way that's quite nice, because at the beginning I've talked a lot with people who advised focusing down on one sector and one product range. So, is it too much to try and cover female and male? But I always thought, no, let's just push ahead with this. And while we don't sell as many of the larger scarves to women, they are higher value items. So they do still make up quite a big part of the business. And in the end, in terms of wholesale, we sell quite a lot of the bigger scarves. But because the designs are unisex, it doesn't matter. We design them as big scarves, and then you just print them smaller. And it works out quite well.
Yeah. Why did you decide on scarves? Because scarves are traditionally something that is in or out of trend. They're kind of very trend based and not everyone's cup of tea. Why did you decide?
It's I think I arrived in the industry as an outsider, and as a designer and an artist. And for me, I thought scarves would be an easy product to design, because they're square and flat. And I was wrong about that. They're not at all easy to manufacture. But that's why I kind of chose the square foulard, because I could instantly see how a design or an illustration would be applied to it. And yeah, then I began the slightly tricky journey of making them.
So what was so tricky? What were the challenges? Because you mentioned manufacturing.
Yeah, it's so basically, when I come from a print background, but a graphic design background, and I'm used to having quite easy access to paper printers who are very open, and you can just Google and find them, and it's cheap and easy and quick. Or the luxury printers are still really easy to find. I thought fabric would be the same, and I thought you could just Google luxury silk print UK, and up would pop 10 brilliant factories. And that's just not how it works out at all. I think it took me about a year of sampling to finally get the right quality.
And why was it so hard?
Because I think I don't know, luckily I had in my head sort of target quality, which is like at the highest end, because I realize I don't want to go in the middle. You can't. There's no point trying to beat China or beat Bangladesh or India and try and get a cheap product. So you have to go to the very top. And so I kind of had this idea of perfection in my head, and that included penetration to the back of the fabric, the really good ink penetration. And that's very hard to achieve with digital print. And it's a bit of an art form. Now I know this. And that's when you're a small business starting out, it's really hard to approach a manufacturer and get them to take the time to understand your designs and print them to the highest level, because you're just a small designer who basically doesn't know anything, like me. And, you're just coming, you're just trying it out, and to get a print factory to slow their machines or tweak your artwork, you have to sort of convince them that it's worth doing. So I think that's why I was part of the beginning.
Especially when they don't know, will you order, will you place production, will it be repeat, are you going to stick around and exist as a brand next year?
Exactly. Exactly. Because you have to build the relationship, and it's an investment on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things it's hard to know when you start out. I mean, I literally hadn't got a clue about anything to do with fashion or print on fabric or the industry. And this shows to the manufacturer as well, And but I'm now finding it a bit more established. Yeah. With the track record, they can see the collections, they can see I'm not going anywhere. And it's easier now to sort of get a sample made and sort of push back and have a bit of a tweak done and things like that. So it was pretty tricky.
And I remember
expensive.
Expensive. Yeah, I remember years ago when we met, you had a manufacturing problem and you were ready to just like walk away and find a new one. And I think it was a bit of a revelation at the time that you had to persevere, that it wasn't going to happen just like that. Was that like a light bulb moment? Because we are so used to in other industry, if your accountant is not right, you just go somewhere else. If the shop is not good, you go somewhere else.
Yes, I mean, I think, to be honest, my suppliers are sort of the best I can find in the UK. So I unlikely to be going anywhere. So I had to build a better relationship, and I had to go through these pain points and learning, and we're still doing it. It's still happening. I think manufacturing, I guess what I'm learning is it's never, you don't perfect it and then just leave it. It is constantly changing, and the materials are changing. Your team at the manufacturers will change, and so their processes might change.
There's always something, right?
Yeah, you cannot just go, right, a reprint, brilliant.
Yeah.
Something like. So it's really, which is why you have to be really close with them. And I think, quite often, and people ask if it's just me in the company, which it kind of is, but actually I work so closely with my printers and my hemmers and my bookkeeper that it's kind of not. So there's a bit of a blurring of a line.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's
and how important was manufacturing in the UK when you started? Because there's this big debate, there's certain campaigns to bring all the manufacturing here. I've always been against that. It's not right for everyone.
Yeah.
Was it right for you? And from what aspect is it right for you? Why did you choose the UK?
Yeah, I think it definitely has been right for me growing the business, because I didn't have access to the knowledge of European markets and approaching. It's hard enough approaching factories here in the UK, but trying to do that in Como or the Far East even, and getting anywhere near a good response would have been really tricky. And you can visit them, which I think is really well worth doing. I would recommend anyone who starts the process to go and, if they can, go and see the factory and meet the people. So that was really helpful. There's a big community of makers in Britain, which was quite surprising how friendly everyone was for me. I don't know if it's the devil wears Prada effect, But I just thought the whole industry would be terrified. Actually, everyone's really nice because everyone's in the same boat trying to make good products and make a living making something they're passionate about. So I found people very open, but there is a strong community in Britain of makers, and that was really helpful. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of a story that you can tack onto your brand values, which is a bit almost like Union Jack washing, like, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's quite helpful to have that as part of your brand story. Yeah. And now during the crisis, which we've not mentioned yet, which is pretty amazing. I'm talking about the Corona crisis, in case you're wondering. That's been amazing for me because actually my production has slowed down, but it hasn't stopped. Which I think if I'd been making in Italy or the Far East, it would have probably ceased completely. So it's actually we've been able to continue developing products, which has been really great. That's it's been good.
But have you been able to really make full use of the fact that you're manufacturing in the UK? Has it contributed to your brand?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I know for a fact that in the Far East, in Japan and Korea, that made in Britain has been really important to them in choosing my products. And that was one of the early adopters of my brand was a really well-known retailer in Tokyo. And if that was a big factor in them choosing me, so I think it has made a material difference. Yeah. But obviously, there's a drawback, and it's super expensive. But you know, sometimes it can be 30% more than Italy, and I don't even know how much more than China because I've not looked at that. But it's a really big chunk of your market.
But I don't think you would have gone to China anyway, no matter what the cost, because you're not that kind of a brand. Italy, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, Italy is. I think it's something I'm definitely not like wedded to staying made in the UK for patriotic reasons or anything like that. It's purely practical. Yeah. So I am looking at Italy as well because the quality is there and the reputation is there.
And they have a history of making scarves, silk scarves, and the finishing, and
exactly, the hemming. I mean, that's the biggest problem we have here in the UK is there's almost no hemmers at all.
Wow. And have you ever considered setting up your own unit, perhaps, and training some people? Or
what I'm not sure about is how to do that with the living wage in the UK and how to get it to work. You need to get I think the hemmers need to be super skilled to be able to do the scarves quickly. Yeah. In order to keep that price down. And if you have someone who's not an absolute expert, it's going to take at least half an hour or maybe more to do a scarf. And then the cost.
Paying them by time.
You have to pay them by time. And, you know, it's so suddenly you have these huge costs added onto your product. Yeah. And then not necessarily the right quality. So it's, I'm happy to let other people deal with that.
Yeah, amazing. So how do you design? Do you launch collections, or what's your process? How often do you release new product? And
so it's weird. I mean, I'm working mainly on one collection a year, which is because it's very labor intensive. And
so you've been going against the grain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just I can't do much more. But what I'm doing is I bring in. Last year, I brought in a guest artist to help me with this because I think that it's a very hungry industry, or it was. Whether it will be so much in the future, I don't know. But it certainly was, and people were expecting at least 2 collections a year from an accessories brand. I've never really, and as I said, I've come to the industry as an outsider, and I never really understood why. It never clicked with me why we need the calendar, the fashion calendar has always, I've never quite got up to speed with it. 5 years in, I'm still way behind every time. I'm like, oh. So, but yeah, so I have in the past been working on these big collections with multiple products, multiple colorways, a grand theme that links everything together, the story behind it, because that is a tried and tested way and people enjoy the story. And that's quite often helps you sell the product. but it's certainly something in the future I'm thinking it might be unwieldy and might be unnecessary. So I'm looking at in the future, possibly, we chatted about it another time, breaking that tradition and creating little small collections that can be launched every couple of months and just like a constant stream of drops, but smaller.
I think newness is important so that you can keep communicating to your customers and draw them back to your website or your shop, etc.
Yeah.
But the collections that everyone copies, the multiple, launches.
Yeah, it's very strange. And what happens for us, for example, we take a huge risk because this year's collection is dragons, which is fairly, it's not exactly controversial, but you invest a lot of time and effort in producing the collection, and it might just not land. People might not like dragons, or and if you don't have the chance to sort of quickly have another topic or another style, and so that's definitely something in the future I'm going to look at, is maybe increasing the frequency, but decreasing the amount in each little mini collections. So it could even be one design in several colorways, and launch that and see if it's popular. And like with digital printing and with the way we communicate now, I don't see that as a problem. A lot of it's direct to consumer on the website, and then a lot of Instagram to promote it. It doesn't have to sort of fit into the cycle of winter, spring, summer. I mean, especially for accessories. I mean, it doesn't make any difference,
Exactly, yeah. So how have you, if you are not doing all these multiple collections and launches, whatever, how have you managed to maintain interest of customers and keep on market and promote what's in effect the same collection, right?
Yeah. I think it's
you have a pretty good following on Instagram, and you don't just talk about it, but you actually do sell scarves.
Yeah. So Instagram for me has been really important to build the brand and to keep people excited about what I'm working on. But I think also one of the strategies I've got as a brand, we are wholesale and direct to consumer. And that's been also very useful because some of our retailers, one of the benefits of doing wholesale, although the margins are much less, is you get to piggyback on their marketing and their PR. Because I think as a newbie to the industry, I discovered that the PR side is actually, one of the hardest nuts to crack.
Yeah.
I still haven't really got a clue how to do it without dedicating another me to that job.
Yeah.
And so if you can piggyback on someone else's effort and they know the industry, because a lot of it comes down to personal connection, which I'm finding. I've actually now got a few relationships with some journalists, and they just come to me and say, "Oh, have you got anything new?"
Yeah.
And that's like amazing. But before, you're like pinging off emails and never hearing back. But if you know them, then they come to you. So I found that relationship with my retailers has been really helpful to sort of launch campaigns, launch new product ranges.
Yeah. Have you ever tried the PR agency?
I've never tried it. In my previous incarnation, which was as a creative director, a branding specialist, I've always encountered the PR agency. I've always been cautious recommending PR agencies to my clients.
Yeah. But
I know there are some really good ones, and I think it comes down to investment. And when you're a startup business, money is so tight, and you need to be really careful with what you do with that money. Every penny counts, and if you have £2,000, you could maybe create a whole new collection of scarves, or you could do a photo shoot and a collection, or you could give £2,000 to a PR agency and maybe you get some coverage. Maybe. It's never guaranteed. So
that's my problem with the PR industry, especially at startup phase, because there's no targets. I mean, no, there is targets, but there's no deliverables. They don't commit to anything. They take your money, but it's always your fault.
Yeah.
And
it's a very weird model. I mean, it's a good model. for them. But it's very, I mean, I'm very aware of it. But I do know that it, as I said, it comes down to personal relationships quite a lot with the journalists, and that is basically what you're paying for. You're paying for their relationship with the journalist.
If they don't have the right relationships, it's just as difficult for them as you to forge them. And yet you're paying.
It's even worse for them if they don't have a relationship, because who wants to hear from a PR person?
Because I remember when I had my jewelry brand, I had for 18 months a PR agency, and I kept getting trade press, which I wasn't complaining, but it wasn't the same as consumer magazines. This was their relationships. They were friends with, the editors, etc., etc. So that's what they were getting, because that was their comfort zone and their connections, and everything else. I had the same chance as them in getting it, except I was paying them. By the time I realized, a lot of money went their way.
And I think I think those are the sort of pitfalls that I've spanked a lot of money on marketing in some very, very poor ways. I took out a full-page ad in a local magazine, and that didn't really work.
I think we've all done that.
I think I had no interest whatsoever from one.
When you start out, there's such desperation to get press and stockists tell you if you don't have press, you can't get a stockist, and vice versa, right? So you're so desperate, you throw money at anything. Like, those little ads at the back of Vogue?
Yeah, I've not done that.
Oh, I've done that. Zero API return.
Yes, I mean, it's really tempting. And I think, the whole influencer marketing thing as well is something to be wary of. But I think it can work, but I've still not quite made it work. Okay. But I've had a few, I've donated a few products to people. And in the end, I think, came out of it feeling that it was almost worth it, because I actually quite enjoyed the whole experience, because it was kind of fun. There is but I think you have to treat it as a bit of a loss. And if something good happens, brilliant.
Hence your choice of word, donated.
Yeah, exactly.
But could you assign any tangible results out of this interaction and donation? Because otherwise, you don't give the money to it.
It's not like in terms of sales, but in terms of getting my brand and me into a different sort of group of people who will potentially lead to, everything leads to something. And you can open doors and you can start conversations. And so as a sort of weird indirect route of going down this kind of gifting to celebrities, I had a really fun fashion week this year, just before everything shut down. And I was, front rowing in one of the shows, and I was meeting people, and in my Instagram, I've suddenly met some really big people in the industry, and that all kind of stemmed from a gift. So it's really intangible, but it's not necessarily a bad idea. But you just have to kiss it goodbye.
And I guess you have to look at the bigger picture and develop the relationship. Use that as a tool of developing the relationship and seeing what else comes out of it as a result.
Yeah. And I think you have to be really on your toes and open to. You have to read situations and read social media and connections between people, and be ready to help someone or to gift something, or. And then, you build these connections and you can really move forward that way.
Wow. It's a bit like snake and ladders.
Yes, I know. I mean, it's kind of quite fun.
Yeah. So what would you do differently if you were to start now, knowing what you know? What would you do differently?
That's a hard one. I think, I would definitely, I'd definitely be wary of paid media advertising, paid digital advertising. So this has happened relatively recently, actually. Not and it's really good to experiment and try every angle and try every marketing technique, and so you understand it. But I recently spent nearly £2,000 on Facebook marketing, and with help from Facebook, Go figure.
Yeah.
They were like, no, you need to spend more. I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
And in the end, he admitted that unless I had a dedicated person to do it, we probably weren't going to get anywhere, and we had to just pause. And that was nearly £2,000 with no learnings and no data. I can't even use the data. There's nothing to take that money and build on. So I would be very aware of that.
Wow.
I would think about, if you're going to do it, hiring someone who knows about it.
Are you saying that you were doing it with guidance from Facebook itself, or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But
I mean, I've tried to do it as well. It's like another whole job.
It's crazy. Itself. Yeah, it is crazy. I know it can be super successful, but I think you need to figure out if it's going to be right for your product and brand. And I'm not entirely sure if I was ever going to have success on Facebook for luxury silk. The people we were managing to hit it just wasn't working. So I would not do that again. Or if I did it again, I would pay someone to do it properly. But in terms of the other thing, I think I would maybe look at my core brand a bit more. I've been quite lucky because, as I said, my background was in branding, and I kind of launched all guns blazing with website and logo, and everything looked great, and that's fine. But I didn't spend any time doing product research, customer research, or that side of it, the more serious kind of business side. So to this day, I'm still growing the business a bit blind.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I think that is something that if you're going to launch a brand, you should probably do at the beginning.
That's the one step that everyone skips over, thinking that they know what it is.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, I think I came in at quite naive, but I didn't expect anything. But I had this feeling that, and this is, I think, everyone who starts, probably, that their product is going to be so amazing that it will fly off the shelves. That I love my product and I stand by it, but in retrospect, that that's not how it works. So my first pocket square collection was like lovely typographic pocket squares that said love and lust, and totally, the design is perfect, the print is great, the product is high, lovely. And I was doing my jogging and fantasizing. I was going to sell thousands. It was going to be amazing. I could retire. And I think I've still got some of those. I think a bit more knowledge about the product, the market, who my customer could be, would guide a lot of decisions going forward.
Yeah. What about
I've been very lucky with how I've moved forward, and I've made a few mistakes, but nothing terrible, touch wood.
Amazing. What about your pricing? Because you're selling a luxury product. Your product is not cheap. I mean, it's not expensive, but you have to think about it.
Yes.
What kind of a pushback have you had? Because I know of some people who, the minute they get told this is too expensive, they start, having all these doubts. But you can't have luxury, well-made, made in the UK or somewhere in Europe and making profit margin without that price.
No, I mean, I think that's, I don't get too much pushback. I mean, I actually did from Facebook, which was really charming. Lots of really rude messages. I mean, who has time to respond to an advert on Facebook? Very weird. But they were, accusing me of daylight robbery, basically. And I would calmly talk them through what goes into making the product. And most people were actually quite nice about it. But I think when we first met was you were actually giving a talk about pricing. So that was incredibly helpful because, again, I had no idea. And I would have pegged my products much lower to be reasonable.
Yeah.
What I thought was reasonable. And it would have been a big mistake because it would have been impossible for me it wouldn't have been impossible to sell into luxury retailers, but I would have had a big shock when they told me what they were going to sell the product at. So I've been kind of guided by my retailers on how I set my pricing, which is kind of nice because I don't have to worry. But it does get more complicated if we're now in multiple countries across the world, and trying to maintain that pricing is a whole other game. on maintaining a good pricing strategy across the world. I don't know how people do it.
It's tough, right? You have to kind of police them and keep reinforcing what your recommended price is and get everyone to stick. But then do you do discounts on your website to get for yourself more sales? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I do. I do very infrequent sales, but again, no strategy. It's one of the things that having the lockdown has been really helpful for is being able to take a big, cold, hard look at the website and the strategy, the products, categorize everything. And I think definitely if people are out there in a similar position to me, they will have grown the business organically, added product ranges, product types without, planning.
Yeah.
And you suddenly have a website that is completely crazy, and that is your prime shop, basically. Yeah. So I've had a really, I've been going through systematically looking at, I've taken all the copy off the website and put it into a different place to look at it all at the same time. Yeah. And I'm just about to do that. I've looked at loads of competitors and just seen what is actually happening, or the big e-commerce sites like Matches or Farfetch, because they throw so much money at optimizing their websites. Yeah. You're mad not to look at what they're doing and copy it, basically. Yeah. So that's what I'm using this time for, which is one of the things I'm doing in lockdown is actually taking a look at the website and sorting it out. And I think as part of that, I will think about sales strategies and things like that, because it is a useful tool, but I, in the past, have just done it ad hoc with no forethought and no follow-up as well to see what worked and what didn't. So all of these things that are, and again, another person's job.
Yeah, completely. But you're so right. And it's interesting because most people think that the minute you put on a website, that's it, they'll come and they'll buy. But it doesn't work like this. And especially now that everyone's online, it's hard enough to get them to come, let alone to buy. And often we just wonder why, and I'm spending money on Facebook ads, etc. But actually the messaging is not there. There's jointed image with wording, with the process of where to take them, So spending that time wisely and really reviewing your website is so important. Yeah, and
it's actually been quite a relief to have the lockdown to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, tidying up. It's like Marie Kondo, I feel a lot lighter knowing that I'm doing this. Because I knew in the back of my head, I knew that there was some of the products had like 300 or 400 word description. Yeah. Because at one point I thought SEO, you had to have a long description. Yeah. Some of the products had tiny short description. I'm like, now it's going to be neat and tidy after this. But yeah, and I think as well, if you're thinking about investing money with Facebook or with Google, maybe think about investing it on your actual bricks, well, your website.
Yeah.
And because that is something it's a permanent asset for you.
Yeah.
And it can be, natural search engine optimization. If you do that on your site, it's permanent. You own it, and it can take you to the top of Google and all that jazz. So
yes, but also if you are advertising on Facebook and driving them to your website, and the messaging is not correct, and and from the first few seconds they don't know exactly why did they come here.
Yeah.
So
and again, that all links back to sorting out your brand, your tone of voice, that core personality as well, so that every communication you make speaks to the same voice. And if you get that right at the beginning, it's or at any time, things become easier to. Yeah. It becomes easier to market and communicate in one voice.
Yeah, but I also often talk about the fact that your brand is like a human being. It evolves. It doesn't stay static. It doesn't stay static, right?
Yeah,
as you launch a new collection, as you evolve as a creative, as algorithms evolve around you, so does your brand have to. So you have to constantly revise it and update it. Wow, it's a lot of work, right?
It is, yeah.
So what are you doing now? How are you seeing the future post when this is over? What would you change? How do you see the industry maybe changing?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think probably there may be a sort of drive to localism even more. That's always been rumbling away. But I think it might become certainly. It might not entirely be a positive thing. I'm really alarmed by the sort of racism against China that's everywhere. You know, it's if the politicians are spouting it, then I find that really distasteful. But there could be a knee-jerk reaction against Chinese goods because of that. And that, you know, the positive from that is that it might benefit local production and the smaller scale, the bespoke, the niche product. Which would be good. But I think consumerism in general has had a massive shake-up. Even people going into a supermarket and seeing empty shelves, that is not something that people in Britain are used to. And I think that maybe made people think, I'm hoping that some people thought, gosh, isn't this weird? Like, where does it all come from? What's happening? You know, so I think that, you know, the fast fashion retailers haven't exactly come out smelling of roses.
No.
You know, certainly their owners, the top owners who are the tax, you know, the whole tax, that whole world has been kind of a light shone on it in a very unpleasant way, and the workers in Bangladesh not being paid, and this people cancelling orders and all that. So I think that shake-up will be interesting as well. I'm not sure about luxury goods, I think, or the higher end of the market. I think it will probably survive. I think it seems to be the crises don't seem to touch luxury or very cheap, the high and the bottom. I'm not sure though, depends.
I mean, the middle is always the one to suffer first. And I think that there was a report just recently that came out that said that luxury goods will suffer around 35% decline this year. But I think it would probably be more. But eventually it will come back, and it will be always this.
That, of course, is only a big problem for huge organizations. So the big brands are there that when they lose 5% market share, it's a massive news story. For smaller brands that are more nimble with no overheads, I don't think that's going to be quite such a big deal.
But a lot of your sales come from wholesale. Are you worried about that? What would you do to rebalance that?
I mean, I think that, so we weirdly have had quite strong sales, but we've got 2 big orders to work on for wholesale during lockdown, which is a bit alarming. It also gives some sort of hope that the big stores are actually considering the future. They've placed an order, but it is a little bit alarming. And wholesale, although the profit margins aren't great, it does give you that volume, which is really essential. So if it completely stopped, I would be slightly upset about that. But we're building, the website is improving every year, and it's just keep on working on that and try and build it that way. I think, and the other impact is I don't know what's happening with the fashion calendar. I think, the fashion, back-to-back fashion weeks in different cities, is that really coming back? I don't.
Maybe not for a while, or ever.
So that, I don't know, but it's I personally am not that worried about it, but I think that's because we're so small, and I can see enough profit coming through the website to keep us going until the dust settles. So, but
do you you still do other jobs? You still consult?
So that's been part of what I've been doing during lockdown, is consulting. So doing bespoke projects or pattern work or even illustration. So
I bring this up because I think it's important for people to know that you can be relaxed about sales and make the right decisions about how to build your brand when you're not solidly dependent on the money that comes from your brand. Because
absolutely. I mean, it's not my sole breadwinner. I've got fingers in other pies.
But most people don't talk about it. Most people don't, I
would be a lot less relaxed if I had to pay the mortgage. So and luckily the my brand consulting and illustration dovetails very nicely into what I do anyway.
Yeah.
So that side, that really helps, I suppose. But I think, you've just got to, although I've been doing it for 5 years, it's still pretty early days. Amazingly, I find, I'm like, that's a long time, right?
Yeah.
But there's so much I haven't done yet to haven't explored. And there's so many retailers around the world or people, and the market is billions of people, and I'm just barely beginning to get in front of the right people. So yeah. I'm pretty positive.
I think I might be wrong, but I think that in America, they call an emerging brand someone that's been, around the 10-year mark.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah, I mean, you're always day one somewhere, right? You're always a new customer, a new shop, etc. It's never like, oh, I've been here 5 years.
Yeah. But I think so. I mean, even last night on Instagram, I saw a really amazing pair of shorts by some influencer was wearing, and I was like, who made those shorts? Found this amazing brand in LA and contacted them through Instagram. The buyer is going to get in touch, and that could be a retailer in Arizona, LA, Palm Springs. And so there are so many opportunities out there. And I think the lockdown means that a lot of people like that have more time on their hands. So you can actually speak to people, and they're not like, I've got to rush off to a meeting.
So what do you do? You just send them a DM saying what?
I sent them a DM saying, I absolutely love your brand. It's amazing. Hi.
Yeah. And then, how does this conversation end up?
And then I said, listen, it's a bit cheeky, but I would love to show you some of the accessories we do. And I wonder if the lockdown helped, because I was really surprised when I got the message back going, great, hey, let's talk.
That's so cool. It's nice.
There's no harm doing that.
Yeah.
As long as you're polite and funny about it, no one's going to mind.
But a lot of creatives are afraid of this kind of interaction and also being seen as desperate or not on brand, whatever that means. So that's what I love about you, because you're not afraid to experiment and just to have fun with it and not take it too seriously.
I think, I think early on in my journey, someone said I was a bit late with a delivery, and I was in graphic design and branding. That can be really serious. It's, like you lose money, you lose the job or something. So I wrote an email groveling saying, I'm so sorry, we're a week late. And the response was, oh, darling, it's only accessories. Nobody's going to die. I was like, thank you so much. So I think if you take a light-hearted approach, people will have more time for you. But you have to have the product, obviously, or they're not going to be interested. I'm still very optimistic that there's a lot of stones that I haven't turned over to grow from where we are at the moment, even with the virus.
Yeah. What has stopped you from adding lots of new products into your brand? Because that's what most people think, that to sell more, you have to keep new products.
Yeah, I think timing. Also, I have to make them well. I mean, I am, again, during the lockdown, exploring other products. Yeah. So we have tentatively created some yoga mats, which is a bit of a pivot, let's put it that way. Basically, I've had to take up yoga during the lockdown, and I couldn't stand the yoga mats that were available. So I designed one and had it made. But in terms of I think there's a natural progression for scarf businesses to add products. Yeah, and I think I'll get there in the end. But it's got to be done well, and it's got to. Each new product comes with so many complications, from packaging to photography to sizing, pattern, cutting, all this. That it's slow baby steps. This year, I mean, we've launched. We're going to launch ribbon scarves. I mean, it's not exactly revolutionary. Just this kind of thing.
Oh wow!
So the Twilly.
Yeah,
that's a new product, but it's just that needed a different box. Every single product has a huge implication.
Yeah.
But I'm also I think the idea of having a diffusion line is a bit early for Furious Goose, but the diffusion line, like, so we're not doing scent yet.
Okay, yeah. No, I just think it's refreshing that you haven't tried to add so many other things, which is what most brands buy, especially year 5. They feel this pressure to grow, and so they start adding more and more, and clothes and more accessories and bags and whatever. Whereas you've really kind of stayed on the lane. Yeah,
you need to. I think you need to build a reputation before you start scooting off. So yeah, I mean, our main focus is on our print though, so we will be doing other products.
Yeah,
this has to be right. We've explored cushions, but it's got to be the right. Well, they're so expensive, my cushions. I mean, I think they're lovely, but I'm not sure. Yeah, £300 for a cushion is quite a lot.
Fancy hotels and millionaire houses, maybe.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's nothing, but I mean, for me, it's all about the print and the concept as well. So
amazing. Well, where can people find you and have a little more, better look at your collections and even maybe buy?
Yeah, well, obviously, so my website is the primary source. So that's furiousgoose.co.uk. Or you can follow me on Instagram, please do. That's always helpful. And if you're in London, you can go to William & Son in Mayfair if you want to actually touch the product.
Yeah.
On our website it has a few other the stores in other parts of the world. But yeah, so mainly the website.
Amazing, cool. Well, thank you so much. That's been enlightening.
Thank you very much.
Good information, really inspirational, and we'll catch up in a few months, maybe see what the outcome of this.
I'll be in LA.
Huh? Oh, really?
I'll be in LA.
I'll come visit then.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.